Madhu, good to have you back and thank you for joining us. And before I start the show, my sincere thank you to you once again. You've been coming on our channel during the throes of pandemic. You've been sharing your opinion. You've been advising our viewers that do not panic and convert the 2020 sell-off into an opportunity. And for those who followed you, I'm sure they've benefited from that. But now where do we go from here? We are staring at a market like never before. This market has not relented at all and there has been no sizable correction. All bull markets correct, but this one is different.
No, first of all, Nikunj, thank you for having me. I have always enjoyed interacting with me, and it's been a delight to see you grow over these years. I am a really happy man here today. So, Nikunj, I think, obviously the markets have gone up a lot in the last 18 months. There's been a significant rise in the mid-cap index, small cap index, and the indices itself. This obviously, needless to mention, is also in the backdrop of what has happened in the global markets. So our rise has not been in an isolation, essentially. And also, the quantum of money, Nikunj, being made in the last 18 months in the global markets is $60 trillion, while in India it is $1.7, $1.8 trillion. So this we've been part of a big global market boom, which is driven by liquidity and low interest rates. So my point is that will there be corrections? There will always be corrections, and the corrections, as you and I know, for last 30 years of being here, where they will always come for reasons which are not known to us today, and they will come when people are expecting it the least, right? And so, but do I really see any kind of a crash, or do I see any abrupt thing which will take the market down significantly? Nikunj, I don't see any of that. In my view, any correction which comes will still be a buying opportunity in the markets.
Okay. So Madhu, what you're telling our viewers is that there is a difference in crash and correction. We are not headed for a crash, but a bout of volatility, and ugly patch of correction cannot be ruled out.
Yes. And Nikunj, over the years, what I have also learned, let us start to differentiate between what is a risk and what is volatility. Like, the volatility can be there in any markets, in any stocks, any company. But risk is when you are stand to lose out your capital, or you lose out 80-90% of your, of your company. That we have seen, you and I have seen over the years, and we have made all very risky investments also in our career, where we have lost out the capital. But volatility is always a good friend of an investor. Just imagine a market which is not volatile at all. Where will be the opportunity for any investors to get in, and how will we get in at a good prices? So if you can differentiate between the risk and the volatility, then volatility is your great friend, and that is what you look for, that stocks are volatile, or for some or the other reason they correct, and that is when you get an entry point. So what I'm trying to tell you is that I don't rule out volatility, I don't rule out a correction, but is it very risky to invest in this market if and when that correction occurs? I am saying decisively no. I am saying the sectors will change, the companies will change, the composition of the markets will change as it has been changing. If you see in the last 6 months, some of the high PE multiple stocks, some of the very valued companies have not done well, and some of the companies which are linked to economy, where there is real value and the growth is coming, those are the companies which have done exceedingly well in this bull market of last 1.5 years. So the rotation of the sectors and the companies will happen, but I don't see any meaningful risk in this market.
Madhu, it's only in hindsight we'll figure out where and how strong this bull market is. But do you see something on the lines of what we've, let's say, seen in US in last 10 years? The US bull market is almost a 10-11-year-old bull market, and it is still not over. In hindsight, when we will look back, do you think this bull market, which let's say started in the throes of pandemic, could be a multi-year bull market like the US market?
Nikunj, that is what I am believing. See, if you look at, the kind of changes which has happened and everything now corroborating, like, you have had a 2-3 year hiccup in bankruptcy code, but now things are panning out. Results are there for us to see, right? Look at the way the GST collections are improving, and I am sure there is still a long way to go. You look at the way this entire Jan Dhan Yojana, the entire subsidy system in India has panned out. And now the way the governments have committed, Nikunj, the way we tackled our problems of this pandemic, like I was listening to someone, he was saying that, let's say for instance, in UK, the government actually distributed money to people and they took on debt, right? And that debt is permanent in the balance sheet of the government. But in India, we handled this situation very, very smartly. While we provided the boost, but we did not print a normal amount of money, and we used this opportunity to do reforms, right? We did a lot of supply side reforms in this period, and that supply side reform will lead to growth, like the mining bill which we passed on, like the farm bills which are impending passing on, the labor bill which will pass on. And what I am really looking and most excited, which will enable your statement that we are in a multi-year bull market, I am really looking forward to this monetization program of the government, this 6 lakh crore rupees monetization which they have spoken about, of the assets and also of the companies. If that takes off, I will take you back to the bull market of UK between 1980 and 1990. UK economy was struggling and virtually at a 0% growth rate in 1980s. And for the decade, they had roughly 5% growth. That was possible on the back of massive privatization which happened, which gave birth to British Airways, British Petroleum and companies like this. We are in India, we've been talking about this disinvestment program for a couple of years now. If few companies get truly divested, it will lead to a significant amount of surplus with the government, which will enable them to invest and take care of the sectors which are needed to be taken care by the government. And also it will free up resources and increase productivity. So I am in the camp, Nikunj, which believes that we are in a multi-year bull market. Let me just, as a word of caution, tell you that we should not extrapolate even in this bull market what has happened in the last 18 months. Because if money was so easily being made, then there will be no money kept in the banks. Everything will come into equities. So there will be, one must expect moderate kind of returns going forward. One must expect that these markets have not corrected for last 1.5 years, and they might find some or the other reason for a correction. But still, equities will be a preferred class. Again, Nikunj, if you look at it, what is my alternative today? If I put the money in the bank, I'm not even getting 5%, and 5% के ऊपर भी पूरा tax लगता है. Then real estate has not made me any money for last 10-12 years. Debt schemes, there is hardly anything debt which is over and above the government deposits. Gold has already gone up in this period by 10x in the last 10-12 years. So where are the avenues? If you are saving $600-700 billion every year, obviously some of that money has to come in equities because of lack of alternatives as well.
Madhu, I genuinely feel that this bull market has a unique differentiating character. FIs are selling and DIs are buying. There was a time when FIs would sneeze and the market would catch a flu, but that is not happening. Yesterday, Rakesh Jhunjhunwala met the Prime Minister, and I don't recall when was the last time the Prime Minister of India met anybody who's a famous investor. So even from a government standpoint, they are in a sense celebrating the rise of Indian entrepreneurs, and Indian investors are also taking a leap of faith. Very big change has happened.
Undoubtedly, Nikunj, we have known, all of us have known Rakesh Bhaiya. He's our own Rakesh Bhaiya. It's such a matter of pride that, Prime Minister putting such golden words. And it is also recognition of the investing community, Nikunj. Otherwise it was like a speculative satte ka bazaar. A Prime Minister meeting the largest investor and having such good words to speak about him is a matter of pride for all of us. And that also, as you rightly said, it also shows the government's attitude towards wealth creation in India now.
So for an average investor, Madhu, the returns in India are anywhere between 13 to 15%. Are we in for that kind of an return for next 2 or 3 years? Because even if you get a 13 to 15% return, it's a very reasonable return from these levels. Do you think that is a stretch number, or 13 to 15% from these levels also is still an achievable number?
I don't know whether the indices will return 15% from here, year on year basis, Nikunj. But I am very confident that if one builds a portfolio of sensible companies on a bottom-up basis and you do your homework properly, I think there is still money to be made, a 15% CAGR in this market on those companies and those sectors basically. So, that kind of return is still possible.
Before I get into themes and what you've always discussed in the past, I'll throw a hard one at you. By the time this bull market will end, do you think the Sensex will be anywhere close to 1 lakh or above 1 lakh?
Nikunj, is entirely possible. See, when we were discussing 30,000, when the index was 10,000, that looked a very, very big number. When we were discussing 50,000 when the index was 30,000, that looked like a dream come true. Now we are already at 60,000. So as long as the companies will grow, in India, which is what you and I have been discussing for 15, 20 years, that this is the country where the nominal GDP is growing at 10-12%. So there will be a lot of companies which will beat the normal GDP as long as these index companies continue to grow. And one big thing which has happened, Nikunj, in this pandemic is the terminal value of lot of large businesses and lot of large companies have gone up because there has been clearly a shift from unorganized to organized sector. There has been clear shift from smaller medium enterprises to large enterprises, and some of these companies which I am talking about, they are represented in the index, right? And when you are saying that the composition of these companies is that which will continue to grow and beat the normal GDP, then clearly, index will definitely see a much higher level where we are. Because the only condition in which index will not see those higher levels is, earnings continue to grow and the P multiple contract significantly. I don't see that as a possibility. That P multiple may contract 10-20%, but will they contract significantly? That is not a possibility. So it's entirely possible that we don't know whether it will happen in 2 years, 3 years or 5 years, but entirely possible that we will see a 6-digit index in times to come.
Madhu, when the bull market started in April and early May 2020, you had identified 2 sectors, pharma because of the relevance and PSU stocks because of the attractiveness. Pharma did enjoy a massive moment of PE re-rating, but then came this entire US pricing issue back. Has pharma lost its sheen now that markets are much more relaxed also on the COVID front?
I don't think pharmaceutical as a sector has lost its sheen. And you have seen, Nikunj, differentiated return in the pharmaceutical sector. So when you talk about a sector, some of the large companies have not delivered even a 20-30% return, and some of the companies have delivered even 500% return, right? So that is what I keep talking about, that on a bottom-up basis there are still opportunities in the pharmaceutical sector. Clearly the challenges which are being thrown in the last 1 or 2 quarters, and they may persist for next 1 or 2 quarters, they are main relating to logistics issues, material coming out of China, so the cost going up, the cost of containers have gone up significantly. So obviously that has clearly given some kind of a suppression to the profitability. And also keep in mind that last 18 months the US FDA has not visited any site, so the new approvals for new products have not come because of COVID. So once that activity resumes, the approvals will come. So in the meantime, what has happened, whatever approval which I have, because I want to sell, so there is obviously increased competition which has come in the last 6-9 months, because since people are not getting new approvals for drug, the whatever approvals which I have in hand, and even at reduced profitability, I am willing to sell in the market. So I think this is more 1 or 2 quarters of disruption. But as a theme, it continues. But let me tell you, I am not saying that I am very bullish on the sector as a whole. You have to know your companies really well in the pharmaceutical sector to generate differentiated returns, and those will still be possibilities. The other sector which you talked about, incrementally, I've been very, very vocal that we see a good cyclical uptrend in the economy, and the stocks in the sectors which are linked to economy, they are likely to do well. And that is what has happened in this bull market in the last 12-18 months. So whether these are PSU stocks which have done well, or PSU banks also which have done well, sectors which are linked to economy have actually done well. Where sectors like metal, where India has got clear advantage because China has stopped exporting that incremental steel capacity and incremental aluminum in the last 12-18 months because of pollution and because of their own local issues. These sectors have done actually well which are linked to economy, and it is my view that over the next 2-3 years there is still a lot of money to be made here because the valuations out here are still reasonable. We can clearly see growth because of the economy turning around, because interest rates are low. The capex cycle, Nikunj, which was like a forgotten word in the investment community, that private capex is going to come back. But if you look at individual companies, they are all announcing capex for the next 3-4 years. So if I put all of this together, keep interest rate in mind, keep valuation and also under ownership. I want to emphasize this point of under ownership in these sectors. When did I see a Coal India and Circuit, Nikunj? I don't think it happened in the last 10-15 years in my distinct memory. But those things are coming back because there is no ownership. बेचने वाला कोई बचा ही नहीं है ना दोस्त.
Great point. Ownership patterns have completely got skewed in favor of consumer, IT, and to a large extent some NBFCs. Madhu, let's spend a minute discussing banks. And you've argued in the past that banks are consolidating, and a Canara Bank or a SBI or a BOB, they are very cheap. But some would argue back and say that in today's world where the relevance of technology is going to be important, what would be the importance and the market share of some of these PSU banks? They may cheap, they may give you a bounce, it could be a 50% bounce, it could be a 100% bounce, maybe more, but can they be structural compounders?
See, I don't know about structural compounding, Nikunj. I am taking a 3-4 year view on these banks. So let me put some points. When you talk about technology, you go and meet the Union Bank of India chairman. I have had the privilege of meeting him. They are talking 50% of their incremental transactions in the retail coming via digital in the next 4 years. Let me repeat. 50% of the transaction coming through digital mode over the next 4 years, right? So it is a myth that these guys are not keeping pace with technology. I think they have invested a lot of money. They have hired the best consultants possible in the world. So McKinsey's and KPMG's of the world are working with these banks. They have had significant efficiency. You look at the experience of in State Bank of India, it's a delight, Nikunj. You as a customer must say, and then you will see what kind of technological changes these banks have done. That's point number one. Point number two, when we talk about these fintech companies and taking market share away, Nikunj, will you and I ever go and put our money as a deposit in any of the fintech companies? Please answer me that. I don't know where is the asset base. And the third point is that to create an asset base, you need significant liability. Otherwise, a lot of these fintech companies are actually become kind of an agent for public sector bank. They are sourcing the loans and they are trying to sell it to public sector banks. And public sector banks are making their own margin. So I do not believe that it is an either-or world wherein only fintech companies will continue to do well and some of these well-run banks which have got assets and the liability both and which have got huge operating profit, 20-25,000 crore rupees of annual operating profit, that they will collapse at the cost of these fintech companies. I am not in that school, Nikunj.
Great point. And I just want to bring this point for our viewers that Rajiv Jain of Bajaj Finance also mentioned this point on a forum, which is that yes, fintech companies may have a commanding valuation of $2, $3, $4 billion, but none of the fintech companies have a balance sheet of even $1 billion. And bank is a business where you need deposits also to grow. But the next sector is metals, and you argued that look, metal cycle is coming back. What changes are happening in China? Given the compulsions of China in ESG, do you think the metal cycle, which already has been a great cycle for investors and for companies, it could also be a 2-3 year play now from these levels also?
Because I would say that there are some structural changes which have happened in the balance sheet of metal companies. Let me take you back to 2019, when the top 5-6 companies in the steel sector had more than 3 lakh crore rupees of debt, and they had 60,000 crore rupees of EBITDA. In 2022, the same companies will have less than 1.5 lakh crore rupees of debt, and they will have more than 1.5 lakh crore rupees of EBITDA, Nikunj. So from 1:5 debt to EBITDA, we have fallen to less than 1:1 debt to EBITDA. This is a structural change. And plus what is happening now, some of these companies are going to generate such significant cash flows on an annual basis that their capacity expansion which they have announced to be undertaken over the next 4 years, most of it will happen without any dilution of equity or without taking incremental abnormal debt. So that is when valuations happen. And I don't find any real justification for some of these companies to trade at 3 or 4x EV EBITDA. So I would say again, I don't know about the sector as a whole, but we own a few companies in the metal sector as a disclosure, and I continue to remain positive on these companies. There is one risk, we don't know what is the extent of slowdown which will come from China, what is the extent of economic degrowth which may happen because of the power crisis, because of the property crisis which are coming. So that is one factor. We more from a sentimental perspective needs to be monitored closely. But if that gets normalized, I think metal still have some steam to play.
Madhu, the relevance of technology is increasing, and the way technology companies are hiring, the way they are telling us that how they on large base also are ready to commit to a double-digit growth. What is the right way to understand IT? It's been a great performing sector, but growth also surprises us. Do you think technology stocks from here also can give double-digit returns, the big names?
Big names can continue to surprise us, Nikunj, because the amount of money which is invested worldwide in digitization and the digital share of the service which these companies are doing has increased over the years. That remains very profitable. It is very sticky, and you and I know that lots of companies worldwide continue to invest significantly in digitization. So the lot of work is coming to these service companies. So it is entirely possible that again, Nikunj, let us not fool ourselves that all 25 technology companies will continue to do well. The point only which I am trying to make, that there will be laggards within this and there will be winners within this. The whole idea should be to go do your bottom up work. Okay, these are the companies which may have 25% growth. I am still getting it at a 20p or 18p, and these are the companies which can still give me those positive delta, and the sector tailwind is there with me. So it is all bottom up stock picking rather than playing the sector. You could have played the sector 18 months back and bought anything and made money because the whole sector did so well. But from here on, I think it will be more bottom up.
Thank you very much, and we look forward to your much more interaction with you both on ET Now English and ET Now Swadesh.
Thank you, Nikunj. Thank you so much. Always pleasure interacting with you. God bless you. Thank you so much.
देश बदल रहा है और बदलाव की ये रफ्तार हर दिन बढ़ती ही जा रही है। बदल रही है पुरानी सोच, बदल रहे हैं पुराने तरीके।
मेक इन इंडिया।
इस नए इंडिया में सिर्फ सेविंग्स अकाउंट ही नहीं, अब लोग डीमैट अकाउंट भी खुलवा रहे हैं। चाहे देसी हो या विदेशी, सब इंडियन मार्केट पर ही भरोसा दिखा रहे हैं। जहां नौकरी की जगह अब लोग चुन रहे हैं खुद का काम, वो इंडिया जिसे तरक्की कर रही है हर रोज सलाम।
आत्मनिर्भर भारत।
बनो इस तरक्की में हिस्सेदार, बदलो इस नए इंडिया के साथ, बढ़ो इस बदलते इंडिया के साथ।